Welcome. In this video, we'll start with Expedition Mode for AEONS End, the New Age. So down at the table, you can see I've got AEONS End, the New Age, introducing Expedition Mode. So I did not do an unboxing for this because most of the contents are do not open until instructed. So it would be just, here's a bunch of envelopes and a bunch of cards that we shouldn't open. This follows through with the normal AEONS End. So it's a deck building game. We're going to start with a generic set of cards, purchase additional cards to make our deck better in the process of trying to defeat a nemesis before it defeats us. And there is another rule book included that will explain how you can do this with all your other previous content, along with our base rule book, about 20 pages there. It goes through a prologue. Basically, it's picking up from AEONS End Legacy. So Gravehold was defeated. Now we have new Gravehold. Nemesis monsters are coming back, and now we're going out to fight them in the field. As far as the contents, most of it's sitting out here. There are a lot of counters that come with the game, but I use other items. So we'll just proceed on with setup. So it's going to tell us to open 1A. This is going to create our market of cards that we can purchase. So we'll go ahead and get that by getting all this out of the way for now. Envelopes will come in later. So 1A, this has our market of cards. So we're going to start out with some gems, exogranite, so we can gain 2 ether. This is our currency for purchasing cards. So gain 2 ether or money, or destroy this to gain 3 money. Recurring jasper, gain 2 ether. The top card of your discard pile is a spell. You may place this gem on top of your deck. Energized rubidium, gain 3 ether. Any ally may discard a card in hand. If they do, that player gains a charge. Galvanized bauble, focus an ally's breach or cast any player's prep spell. You may destroy it. An ether conduit, attaches to any player's breach. When a spell is cast from this breach, the player who casts that spell gains 1 ether. Then we get into some spells here. Tethered darts, deal 2 damage. If this was cast from an open 3 or 4 breach, you may place this into any ally's hand. Force amplifier, cast, deal 3 damage. If this was cast from an open 3 or 4 breach, deal 1 additional damage. Imbued smash, deal 4 damage. You may discard a card in hand. If you do, deal 2 damage to the nemesis. And then our pattern strike, deal 4 damage. You may return to your hand up to 2 cards in your discard pile that cost 0 ether. And of course, they suggest putting it out in a 3x3 grid. But I like making a straight line out here. Then we're going to find our player mats. And I'm going to play this true solo, so I'm just going to pick one character. This game is designed for 1 to 4 people. Sometimes solo players will take control of 2 characters, but I'm just going to choose 1. So we have Claudia, Gygar, Sahala, and Takreen. These are the 2 I'm interested in, but I think we're going to go with this one just to see what happens. He's got a neat ability, focus any player's breach. Any player gains 1 life for each open breach you have, so that gives us some automatic healing. And for the rest of the card, player number, something we don't have to use, but there's tokens letting us know if you're player 1, 2, or 3, or 4. Life, we're going to start with 10 health. Starting hand is going to be 4 crystals and 1 gift spirit. Starting deck, 4 crystals and 1 spark. Deck goes on one side, discard pile on the other, and there are 4 breaches up at the top. This is where we can spend 2 ether to put a token here, and once we fill this up, do our special ability. Give some backstory here. This also says his number 4 breach is a defender breach. When a spell is cast from an open defender breach, Gravehold gains a life. And also up at the top, it shows us how the breaches come into play. So our first breach is going to come in open. Second one is going to come in this direction, so we need to focus it to open it up. Third one in that direction. And our final one will be oriented that way. Next, we'll bring out Stop 1B so we can get our starting hand and starting deck, along with a reference card. So in 1B, we're going to be looking until we find our Gift of Spirit. So in our starting hand, we're going to have 4 crystals. It's going to give us 1 ether each. A Gift of Spirit, deal 1 damage, or an ally draws a card. And for our starting deck, the cards further to the left are going to be on top, so the 4 crystals will go on top, and then we will make our deck that way. We have a reference card explaining the Nemesis turn and our turn. Then we will create the turn order deck. So there's always going to be 6 cards in this. 2 is going to be for the Nemesis, the other 4 for the heroes or breach mages. Since I'm playing a 1-player game, all these are going to be for me. And since I'll be shuffling and using this a lot, I do like to sleeve this section. So we'll just randomize those and have those ready. Then we are going to set our Nemesis up with Stop 1C. So Magath has health of 45, so we have that set up there. He has an Unleash ability to place 2 maggots into play. I'm not using the increased difficulty. Additional rules, each maggot is a minion that has 1 life. Each fly is a minion that has 2 life. When a player deals exactly 1 damage to a fly, replace it with a maggot. When a player deals damage to a maggot or a fly, that player must deal damage to a maggot or fly in the topmost row of the nest mat. So if there's stuff up here, we have to go with the top row first versus taking it down from the bottom. Player may distribute the damage dealt over any number of maggots or flies on the same row. When a fly hatches, flip the bottommost maggot over to the fly side if able. And when a maggot or fly is placed into play, place it on the bottommost row of the nest that has space for it. When a row is filled, resolve the effect directly above that row. And this is our lose effect for the game. So we have to do 45 damage to this to win. And if all these areas get full with flies and maggots, we will lose the game. And then for setup, place the nest mat next to this mat. Then place 2 maggots into play on the bottom row of the nest mat. And then here's our maggot and fly tokens. Then we're going to take our Stop 1C, place all these cards next to our Nemesis. And then since we are playing with just 1 player, we're going to discard the top 7 cards of the Nemesis deck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then we're going to Stop X, which is our Expedition deck. And we'll read as far as this needs to. So Battle 1, our introduction. It's been a week since Commander Saskel, one of the new Gravehold's most decorated breach mages, led an expedition to the north. They were scheduled to return days ago, and the council fears the worst. You're called upon to go after them. The loss of good mages is already painful enough, they explained, but Saskel and his party carried some of New Gravehold's rarest and most powerful artifacts. No matter what, you must find and return these treasures. You gather your gear and set out at once. The familiar trails of New Gravehold slowly give way to swampland. They are as muggy and thick in your lungs. So you feel a strange sensation of being watched. You scan the dense underbrush and notice movement as someone turns and flees. Without hesitation, you chase them deeper into the swamp. Someone shouts, "Release it!" To your right, a gigantic insectoid, nameless, crashes through the underbrush towards you. The man you're chasing ignores the creature and continues into the swamp. He'll have to wait. A nameless this close to New Gravehold must be stopped. So we have to fight Magath. At the end of your game, if you won, we'll read the front of the next card. If you lose, we'll fight again. So go ahead and got everything set up. Shuffle this a little bit more and see who goes first. We'll be going first. So for player turn, we've got our casting phase first. We may cast any of our prep spells on our open breaches, which of course we don't have on our first turn. Place cast spells on the top of your discard pile as they are cast. Then during our main phase, we may resolve the following actions in any order and as many times as we want. We can play gems or relic cards, which is typically going to give us ether or money. Gaining a card, gain charges, which we'll put down here to get our main ability off. Focus or open breaches. So on these, it's going to tell us how much ether that costs to do. Prep a spell to the breach. Resolve a while prepped effect, or resolve a 2 discard effect. Then our draw phase, place all gems and relics that you have played this turn on top of your discard pile in any order you choose. Draw cards from the top of your deck until you have 5 cards in our hand. So we're going to go ahead and prep our spell to an open breach. Then we're going to play our 4 crystals, which is going to give us 1 ether or money each. So we've got 4 money banked. And we're going to spend that to pick up a recurring Jasper. This goes immediately to our discard pile. For our draw phase, we've played these. Discard those in any order. Then we draw up to 5 cards, which is going to be our spark and 4 more crystals. Next, the Nemesis is going to take a turn. On his turn, from oldest to newest, resolve the effects of each minion and power card the Nemesis has in play. So we'll have those cards laid out here. Draw a card from the Nemesis deck. If it's an attack card, resolve it immediately. If it's a minion or power card, we'll place it out and see what it does. And this explains what happens when we are exhausted. I guess I should explain a couple solo play rules changes. So if a card refers to an ally, we are our own ally, and we don't lose the game when we are exhausted. Instead, we just lose the game when Gravehold gets to 0 life. We will flip a card, getting a power. So to discard, we need to spend 6 ether. We're going to put 3 tokens on it. If all 3 tokens go off, we're going to place 3 maggots into play. Any player suffers 3 damage. So I like using these as my tokens versus what came with the game. The next turn will be us. So we have 4 money right now to play with. It takes 6 to get rid of that. We know the bottom card on here is going to give us 2 money. So we're going to go ahead and cast this. It's going to go to our discard pile. Then any player draws a card. Since we don't have any cards here, we just take our deck, flip it over, then draw from the top. So now we've got gain 2 ether. We'll go ahead and spend 6 to discard this. Then we will prep our spark, and that'll be our turn. Next will be us again. We'll deal 1 damage to this little guy. Oh, jumped ahead of myself. At the end of our last turn, we would have discarded all these, then drew 5 cards. Then dealt the damage to 1 of the maggots. Go ahead and prep 1 of our spells. And then we have 4 money again, which we're going to get another Jasper with. Ending our turn. Drawing into a lot of money. Next turn will be the Nemesis. No cards out, so we'll draw into a Drillbeak Worm. So it's got 6 health. It's a persistent effect. Any player suffers 1 damage. Gravehold suffers 1 damage. Gravehold comes in with 30 health. I'm going to go ahead and deal 1 damage to this guy. Going to use these to get us 4 money. Then on this one, it's going to take us up to 6. And if the top card of your discard pile is a spell, which it is, you may place this gem on top of your deck. So we've got 6 money to play with, which I will use for an Imbued Smash, which will let us deal 4 damage, and we may discard a card in hand. If we do, deal 2 damage to the Nemesis. And then next turn is going to be us. after we draw 5 cards. So we're going to prep a spell. We're going to bank 6 money. We're going to spend 4 of that to open this breach. Then we'll spend 2 to gain a charge. Discard and draw 2, 3, 4, and 5. Drawing into 3 crystals, an imbued smash, and our gift of spirit. Done with this round, we will shuffle our turn order deck and do it all again. First comes to us. We will deal 1 damage. Prep 2 spells. We've got 3 money. I'll go ahead and grab this gem. Ending our turn, drawing 5. A lot of money coming up for our next round. This goes to the Nemesis. So any player suffers 1 damage. We are going to be any player. Gravehold suffers 1 damage. New card comes out. Discard 3 cards in hand to get rid of this. Place a maggot into play, then place 2 flies into play. So I'm hoping we get to go next, which we do. We are going to use this so we can draw a card. Getting a crystal. We'll cast this, dealing 4 damage. Then we may discard a card in hand to deal 2 damage to a Nemesis. So do 4 up here. Go ahead and discard a card to deal 2 damage. And now I'm seeing that I should have done those in a different order. But that's how we learn the game. Then I'm going to discard 3 cards to get rid of the Hive Surge. Then we're going to bank 4 money, which we'll use for another Jasper. Ending our turn, drawing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we've got 3 crystals, or exogranite, and 1 spark. Next turn is the Nemesis. Place a fly into play. So these guys have 2 health. Any player suffers 3 damage. So we're down to 6 health. Next turn is us. Prepping a spark. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 money here. We will use that to get another smash. Discarding and drawing 5. And we'll take another turn. Taking out a maggot. Prep some spells. Then we're going to spend 3 to focus our breach. So this is our next hand. And we shuffle our turn order deck. And first is going to be us. So we are going to deal 4 damage, down to 39. Discard a card in hand to deal 2 damage to the Nemesis. Then we're going to play this to have us draw a card. Actually, no, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to deal 1 damage. we'll take this maggot or fly down to a maggot. Since we now have a spell on top of our deck, we're going to gain 2 money and put this on top of our deck. 4, 5, 6. We've got 7 money, which I think I'm just going to spend to open up this breach. So on this one, when we cast something from here, it's going to give us +1 damage on cast. Then we're going to draw 5 cards, knowing what 3 already is. Next turn will be us. We'll prep a spell. We are going to bank 2, 4, 6, 8 money. We're going to spend 6 of that for charges, then do our ability, focus any player's breach. So go ahead and focus this breach. Any player gains 1 life for each open breach you have. We have 3 open breaches, so we'll gain 3 life. Then with our final 2, we'll gain another charge. Discard and draw. And by discard, these were the ones we had played. Getting 4 crystals, so we got a starting hand here. Next is going to be us. Then we're going to cast, dealing 4 damage. We may discard a card in hand. If you do, deal 2 damage to the nemesis. And effects that modify damage affect both instances of damage. So we're getting +1 damage on both of those. So that's going to be 5, 8 damage. Down to 29. At least that's the way I interpret it. Let me know if I'm wrong. And our crystal we're discarding for that extra damage. We'll prep a spark. Then we'll bank 3 money. And get ourselves some tethered darts. All right, so 3 crystals, Gift of Spirit, and an Imbued Smash. Nemesis is finally going to go. To discard 4 cards in hand. It's going to unleash twice. Gravehold will suffer 3 damage. Just gets 1 token. And it's losing that token. So it's unleashing twice. 2 maggots in play. Then 2 more maggots. We've completed this row, so Gravehold suffers 2 damage, and we hatch a fly. And then Gravehold suffers 3 damage, so down to 24. Then our new card, we've got a Portal Guardian. Unleash ability, any player suffers 1 damage, and it's got 8 health. And our turn, we'll go ahead and deal 2 damage to the fly. Prep 2 spells. Then with our 3 money, we'll get some darts. Draw 1 card, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Our next turn is not going to be any fighting going on. Turn order. It's hard to shuffle just a few cards. So it is going to be our turn. +1 damage on cast, so we're going to be dealing 5 damage to a minion. Then discard a card to deal 3 damage to the nemesis. Then we'll go ahead and draw a card, finding an Imbued Smash, which we will go ahead and prep. Then we have a spell in our discard pile, so we're going to get 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 money, which we're going to go ahead and use to open up this breach. So Gravehold will gain a life on cast. Getting our 5 cards, tethered darts, and a lot of money. Next turn will be us. We'll cast this to do some overkill on this guy. Discard a card to do 3 damage over here. Then tethered darts. We're going to put that on a level 3 or 4 breach. We may put this into an ally's hand, which for a 1-player game is going to be us. Then 6 money we'll use for another smash. Drawing into these. Next turn will be us. We'll cast it to deal 2 damage. Then since it was cast from a 3 or 4 breach, we can place it into any ally's hand. So we'll put that in our hand. And then prep some spells. Then we're going to bank 3 money and just use it to get 1 charge. So drawing 3 cards here and 2 more. Nemesis gets a turn. Place 6 maggots into play, or any player suffers 5 damage. We'll go with the 5 damage. Next will be the Nemesis again. Volcanic Zala, so 10 health. Persistent effect, Gravehold suffers 3 damage, or any player loses 2 charges. And then we'll get a turn. I think we'll probably just end up ignoring that guy. So deal 2 damage. Down to 19. Gravehold will heal. It's cast from her 4 breach, so it goes back to her hand. Deal 3 damage. And this goes back to her hand. Then we can deal 1 damage. Then we'll put this on our 3 breach. Darts out like so. 4 money. We'll get us 2 charges. We'll spend all those. We don't have any breaches to focus. We'll gain 4 life. Ending our turn. Drawing into a pretty good hand there. And shuffle for our next round. So we've got 15 health on the Nemesis, 10 on a minion, and our nest mat is looking okay. First turn is going to go to us, dealing 2 damage, gaining 1 over here. You can return this back to her hand. This plus 1 damage on cast, so we're going to be able to do a total of 8, taking it down to 5. And that was with the discard ability. Then we'll deal 2 damage from that one, so down to 3. And as long as we get another turn, this game's going to be over. So we'll go ahead and destroy this to gain 3 money. So that'll be removed from the game. Buy some darts that we won't get to use. Next turn will be us. Of course, I was too excited, didn't draw cards. But we'll play that card, which will defeat the Magoth. And of course, there is a scale on the back here, so he's not the toughest one there. And this is just an introductory for the expedition rolls. So with that defeated Nemesis, we'll go back to our expedition deck. So at the end of the game, if we won, read the front of 03. So our battle 1 conclusion. As the fight ends, you finally relax. The man and his allies have vanished, but during the battle, you saw them watching and taking notes from a distance. You recognize the symbol on their cloaks. These are followers of Zaxos, the same ones who were exiled to these woods years ago. Could they and this strange pet, Nameless, have had something to do with this disappearance of Saskel's team. You tense up, seeing a burst of fire in the corner of your eye. You turn to see a woman with strange crystalline hair torching the corpse of one of the Magos minions until the ground around it is charred and blackened. Nameless scum, she spits on the ground. If you let them sit, they fester and poison the soil. They're no good even when they're dead. Read the back of this card. You recognize her as Rhea, a fellow breach mage, a master in the study of relics, and a member of the missing expedition. Rhea finishes disposing of the corpses and explains how her team was ambushed by a strange spider-like Nameless. It was wrong, she says bluntly. I fought plenty of Nameless, but none of them coordinated their minions like this. Way too smart for those buggers. A bunch of monsters shouldn't have been able to get the jump on us. We tried to retreat, but Commander Suskel got captured, and without a leader, their orders got jumbled. We retreated in different locations. She rubs her arm. I don't know who else is alive or where they are. So card 4. Rhea explains that due to her expertise, she was in charge of holding her team's magical artifacts. She distributes them amongst your group, scowling, if those monsters are still out here, you're going to need them. Rhea leads you back towards to where her expedition was ambushed to begin looking for survivors. The swamp gives way to trees as you trek further north. You keep an eye out for the Zaxos followers from earlier, but the woods seem empty. So we'll open deck 1D and add all of the cards in that deck to our barracks. Since the barracks is new, it's used between games. The barracks is where players store all their content they have access to for the current expedition. This includes player cards, player mats, and treasures. So we've got deck 1D. So we've got Brahma's Buried Light, Guru's Torch, Kadir's Emerald Shard. All these are treasured gems. Miss Garnet Shard, Zaxos Pyre, a Planner Pocket, some more crystals, a Resonant Pearl, Caged Fire, Well of Energy, and a Spirit Lift. We'll then open envelope 1D and add Rhea to our barracks. So here's 1D. And that is Rhea, our other breach mage we just found. So she gets the planner pocket, supplement, return a card in your hand or discard pile to its supply pile. If you return a relic, gain a card from any supply pile that costs up to 3 ether more than the returned card. Otherwise, gain a card from any supply pile that costs up to 2 ether more than the returned card. Either way, place the gained card into your hand. And then her flavor text. Then we will read the back of this card. Battle 1 Conclusion. The thick branches creak in the wind, and even the midday sun struggles to pierce their oppressive shade. The thick crackling energy in the air makes your hair stand on end. Something dangerous is near. You crest a hill and spot a massive swirling breach with a twisted shape kneeling before it. Inside the portal, you barely make out the shape of a gigantic shadowy spider. You inch closer, unable to comprehend what you're watching. The kneeling creature seems humanoid except for a mass of arachnid legs bursting from its spine. Breach energy flows into its skin as it communes with the portal. That's the Nameless we fought, Rhea whispers beside you. So we'll read the front of the next card when we're ready to start battle number 2. And that will conclude our first look into AEONS End, the New Age, introducing the Expedition mode. As always, I hope you enjoyed this playthrough. If so, please click on the like button below and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.